Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 2 of the Q&A, so let's go ahead and get this started. All right, first question. Hi Jason, what is your opinion of a push slash rest slash pull slash rest split trying to master the overhead press, deadlift, and squat with substantial higher volume of triples accompanied with bench press, weighted chin-ups, pendlay rows as accessories? I don't know why you're doing it that way with trying to master those lifts. I don't think that's really ideal at all, to be fair. I think your frequency is going to be a little low. Now, I understand lift mastery days. Like if you wanted to rotate through these 3 lifts on different days alternating, like squat day, off day, overhead press day, off day, deadlift day, off day, and then you wanted to add these other things in as accessories, that would make a lot of sense. For example, if you wanted to do the pendlay row on your deadlift day, right? You wanted to do the weighted chin up on your squat day and then the bench press on like your overhead press day, or you could swap the chin up and the bench press. That would probably be fine. But I think when you're splitting frequency that far, I don't think you should be splitting your training up that way. Just me personally, I think you're going to end up with not enough frequency for a drug-free lifter to really master these lifts, right? Especially even if you're doing especially with the high volume triples. I might recommend going the other direction, like where you have the individual days for each of those 3 lifts you're most concerned with, and then add the second lift to make sure that you're turning it into a roughly full body or movement pattern oriented training session. That's the direction I would go personally. Instead of counting it as push-pull like that, I wouldn't really do it that way. Not for a lift mastery training with high volume triples. When you're focused on those 3 lifts. All right, next question. Hey Jason, curious about this. Since it is better for bodybuilding to do the following before jumping on gear: build a solid strength base, do big heavy compound lifts, why did they hop on gear before building a base and do stupid fluff and pump? They're leaving gains on the table. No, actually they're really not. I mean, to be perfectly honest, if someone were to come to me at any age and say, I want to get as big as possible, as fast as possible, with no concern for the consequences. I don't care if it kills me. I don't care if I drop dead in 10 years. They should start on gear the first day they start training. They should be using enormous amounts from the first day they join the gym, right? They should be using amounts that are going to kill them. And if you're going to be a professional bodybuilder, it is going to kill you. It is a deadly lifestyle. So no, they're not leaving gains on the table. The reason we say to build the extremely solid strength base is because we're assuming people want to minimize what they have to use, right? We're assuming that people also want to come off eventually. Those are the 2 factors you're looking at. In other words, they actually care about their health. They don't want to die. And they might even not want to stay on indefinitely. Because if you're going to be a bodybuilder, you need to be blasted year round. If you're going to be a serious bodybuilder, and this is another problem I have with bodybuilding, you can't cycle off. You can't do real cruises. You're gonna lose your gains. You're not going to be competitive in that environment. These guys have to use dangerous amounts year round and never come off. That's just part of the game. But by building a base first, you can gain oftentimes just as much muscle and size off of like a third of what the other guys are using. And that's the big difference. It lets you use a hell of a lot less side effects, less health risk, less money. All right. That's the whole point. And it's easier to keep those gains when you come off of it. If you do that, that's what we're really talking about. It has nothing to do with leaving gains on the table. If a person wanted to get as big as they possibly could, they would start using as much stuff as they could possibly afford from the very first day they started training. All right, that actually does make sense. That's what Flex Wheeler did. Look where it landed him. Well, granted, he lost his kidneys and everything else, but it did put him number 2 at the Mr. Olympia. So no, bodybuilders aren't dumb if they don't care if they die. If they just care about winning and being a bodybuilder, they're not dumb for doing it that way. They're just not being efficient. All right, next question. Jason, my right hamstring is very tight. Any suggestions to prevent an injury? Yeah, you need to just do some mobility and stretching there. What I would recommend, if you have really tight hamstrings and it's pulling and causing maybe some posterior pelvic tilt on some of your exercises, There are stretches you can do for your glutes and everything. It's not going to be just your hamstring, it's your glute and everything is probably tight. You probably need to lay down. What you do, you get on your back. Like, look how I'm laying right there on that floor press. Perfect example in the video in the back. Lay down like that, put one leg out straight, bring one knee up and use it and stretch it, and then bring it in, like pull it towards your center, right? Stretch it both directions, stretch it there and then stretch it out like you would in a deep squat outwardly. So you need to stretch it both medially and laterally. So that's what I would recommend you do. Do some stretches like that for both sides. Because again, a lot of times people do like hurdler stretches and those are fine and everything, but oftentimes they cause you to round your back and everything. And if you do these on the floor correctly, you can easily maintain that. And then you can get that knee into that position and start doing those a couple times a day for both sides and see if that loosens everything up a bit and helps with some of that. And see if it helps with some of it. And it could just be that you have weak hamstrings. You might have a job where you sit all day and that could be affecting that. So there's a little bit of stuff you need to do just to sort that out. All right, next question. Do you think novices and people who can't bench 225 for singles should do pause reps or touch and go to build their base? Novices have no business doing touch and go ever, because a novice lifter has no clue how to touch and go. Right? A sub 200 pound bencher has no clue how to do a touch and go rep. They bounce that off their chest and then lift their ass 10 inches off the bench. That is to them a touch and go. They have no business doing it. I don't want to see anyone who is a novice lifter. In other words, you can't bench 2 plates aside for reps. You have no business doing anything less than a 1 count pause on your chest on every rep. All right. I'm not going to compromise on that. It's non-negotiable. Someone who is that weak with that little training experience isn't mentally capable of doing touch and go reps in my experience. The only way you can teach them to do touch and go reps is this. It's actually harder to teach them that than it is a pause rep. They don't get it. They don't have the body awareness. They don't have the training experience to properly touch and go. It's a bounce. It's a bounce, particularly with men. You can train some women to do it, but men with their egos, no. So no, they have no business doing anything less than a 1 count. And I don't want to hear any excuses. And that's exactly what it is. And people say, well, I think I need to do it just to get to the weight. No, that's a bullshit reason to bounce it off your chest. Quit being a jackass. Pause the reps. Get your pause bench up to 225. All right, next question. Hi, Jason. If I want to gain strength in the bench, overhead press, and incline bench in order to gain the different benefits from them, how would I do that if I can only train 3 times a week? I want a heavy, light, medium routine too. So I was thinking of doing bench for a heavy day, overhead for a light, and incline for a medium day. But wouldn't training each lift only once a week be too little, or does the frequency not matter since they're all transfer and feed in with each other? The way I see it, it's only the overhead press frequency that's the concern, as that movement pattern is a bit more different, whereas the difference between bench and incline is little, and therefore I would need to train the overhead press 2 times a week and incline bench only 1 time a week. Is my thinking right? Thanks, coach. You can only train 2 times a week and you really care about all 3 of these lifts, you better do 2 of them every time you're in the gym. Unless you're doing some sort of lift mastery training, and if you're doing heavy, light, medium, you better rotate through them. In other words, I'd like to see maybe day 1 bench and overhead, day 2 incline and overhead, day 3 bench and overhead. So do that. So you'll end up getting your heavy, light, medium will change whether you're doing flat or incline every workout. But I would say, for me, ideally, I mean, yes, I know I wrote the novice program different. But when I'm dealing with most people these days, I would like to see in most training sessions, I'd like to see both the press and some sort of chest press done for anyone. I don't care what your goals are. Ideally for guys who are really trying to maximize upper body size, I'd like to see both in every training session where they touch their upper body at all, right? So if you're doing an upper lower type split or push pull split, obviously you do your bench and overhead on those days. But if you're doing full body, I'd like to see that. I'd like to see someone do weighted dips and the press on the same day. I'd like to see your bench press and the press on the same day. That's just a direction I feel that people really need to go if you want to maximize this. So what I would recommend, if you care about them, if you want the most transfer, alternate the bench and the incline. The question I would ask, though, is, are you sure that you really need to be focusing on the incline to that degree at this point? You're getting the benefits of the incline realistically. You're probably getting it from both the press and the flat bench. Now, if you wanted to rotate it in for a phase every now and then, that's fine. But I think the other two are overall better meat and potatoes exercises. And I'm not saying the incline's not a good lift. It actually is a really good lift. The barbell incline bench is a fantastic lift. I just don't know that you need to do a lot of focus on it for your base building when the other two bring more to the table overall. Each one brings a little more to the table, and then they give you overlap towards it. That's my opinion. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 3.